Hi guys, and welcome to this creative motion video. In this tutorial we'll take a look at rigging BB-8. So we're just gonna be rigging here, and we're not gonna be texturing, modeling or anything else. This is just gonna be based on how we create the rig and how we can go about animation using some basic controls. Okay, so first thing we'll do is we'll create a sphere. So just create a sphere in the scene, and then change your display to show lines, and now we can see the topology we're using on this. So just so we don't have the poles at the top and the bottom, if you select the sphere, go down to type, change standard to, let's try, let's try this one, hexahedron. Okay, so that way when we see this rotate, we should be able to kind of see the lines of movement. We can always pop a texture on this if it's not clear enough. So yeah, I mean basically the body's just a ball, and we'll just quickly model the head as well. So again, if we just duplicate this, so hold down Command and drag, we'll just duplicate the sphere, and we'll change this to a hemisphere, and just move this up. We'll scale this down around about something like this. Okay, let's just convert this by hitting C. And if we right click, so if we right click and we go to close holes, so here we go, and then just click here. What we've done is we've obviously closed the hole on here. This topology is going to be pretty messy on this, but we won't worry about that for now. We'll just do a quick extrude. And then just pull this down, just so we've got like a very similar kind of shape to BB-8. Okay, let's just change the font tag and bring that down just so the shading's a bit more accurate to how it would be. And we'll just move the head down. Actually, let's just name this head, and then this one body. And we'll just move the head down a little bit and just place that onto the top of the body. So I wouldn't worry too much about any intersecting. It won't cause any problems, I don't think, at this point. And you want it to be, fairly close. You can always remodel the geometry if you do any issues with this, and we'll just scale it down just a tad as well. So I think that's looking fairly close to the proportions, and we'll just pull in a floor object as well. Okay, and we'll just move the floor down, because what we want to do is try to keep all the everything kind of centered really. So it's going to make things easier if we just move the floor down rather than move everything else up. So move the floor down. You have to be too precise at this point. So now we've got all the basic shapes really ready to rig. We need to kind of think about, I guess, how we what kind of movements we need. What kind of controls we need. So this head obviously can rotate, and it needs to rotate spherically around this, so it needs to like touch and come into contact at any point of the surface. Also needs to orientate the correct direction, and one of the other things we'll have like rotation on the head as well. So we need to bear in mind all these three things while we're doing this. So you could rig this mathematically, calculate kind of rotation based on movement, all that kind of thing, but I think it'd be much easier to kind of run dynamics, partial dynamics with a rig on this one. Okay, so the approach I took was to use ray collision with Espresso. So the idea being, if we just kind of look at this from a different view, so we'll just go into the front view here, zoom in, let's go into the doodle tool, wherever that's gone, there we go, doodle tool. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll place a null in the center, and we'll actually fix that in as well. And we'll have a control as well, which is outside of the sphere. So we'll have a control, say, let's just say it's there. And then using ray collision, what we'll do is we'll send a ray from this null to this null. And then what will happen is there will be a collision on the mesh, which is here. Now that will give us the position data, but it won't kind of orientate. So what will happen is we can position this head to this point using ray collision, which will work, but we still need to worry about the problem of orientation. And one of the ways we can kind of fix that as well is if we use a tag and then we can tell this head to orient towards this direction, so we'll get more of that type of shape really going on. And then with the target and tag, it'll use a pull vector, and the pull vector will tell the head, kind of how it rotates or where it should be facing, and we can use additional controls then to rotate the head around on kind of this axis here. Okay, so let's just get rid of this. I'll just go back into the perspective view. Now, how we mentioned everything before is everything's centered in the scene. So if we click on the body, everything's zeroed out, and that's exactly the point where we want to place the first null. So let's place the first null in the scene, and we'll call that body. Okay, and then let's just duplicate this null, move it up, and just make it visible. So let's call this target, and then if we select this, go into the basic tab, go into object, change it from the display type here from dot to something like a sphere. And you can kind of change this to your own preference really. And we'll just make it a little bit bigger, just so we can see it a little bit more clearly. And then go into basic tab, use color to change that to on. And then what I tend to do is just use some kind of really vivid colors, just so when we don't click on our nulls, you can see the controls very clearly in the viewport. And you can make obviously custom objects or splines for these to make them a little bit more obvious for what their purpose is. But at the moment we've got a null in the center, and we've got this null here that's kind of being targeted to. Okay, so let's just create another null, call this espresso, and pop on a espresso tag. And then if we right click, go to new node, espresso, general, I think, yeah, we've got ray collision here. And then remember we need the body null, which is centered here, and we need to link that in to object to ray point 1. Sorry, that will be, so we want to pull in this mesh here, and we'll set that to objects and link that into objects on here. So this ray collision node knows what it is referencing. Then we've got ray point 1, ray point 2. So we need both nulls in here. So let's just pull in the tag and the body. And then we want to kind of pull this into here. And we'll use coordinates, we'll use global position, and the same for this one. Okay, so what's happening here is we need to kind of drop this down, because at the moment this is exporting out is if there is a collision, not the kind of position of it or any kind of vectors really. So we're referencing the body, which is the mesh, and we're linking in both these nulls, send an array. We've got a collision at this point here, and then we need to output that position. So let's just drop this down. We want the hit position. Okay. So what might be better to do here is if we take head and we group this in a null. I mean, it's got quite a good position point at the moment, but the orientation might be off. So let's just group this into a null. So Alt G, we can call this head again. And pull this one into the Expresso window. And then we want to output the hit position into the global position of this. Okay, so what I've done here is this is quite a simple mistake actually to make, and by default this node is set to test only. Okay, so we've problem solved this by opening the console. We've pulled in the print console node, and we're just kind of reading out the output here. So we can see that the reason it's obviously linking it to that position is right, because it's outputting a value of 0, 0, 0, so it's centering that null into the scene, into the center of the scene. Okay, so if we click on this and check test only, now we should see it move into the correct position. So now you can see it's moved. So it's a good thing that we kind of run into that, I guess. And using this print console node is a really good way to kind of troubleshoot your kind of areas. And what I tend to do is, link this in early on to read out values, and then just kind of work your way forwards. So we can get rid of this now and just close down the console. Now, if we move the target objects, we should see this moving on the surface, and that's doing exactly what we need it to do. So what we can do then is we want to kind of orientate this. We need to kind of target this null to this null here. So we go into tags again, send in 4D tags, and we go on to using the target tag. And the target objects we want to use is this one here. So we pop this in. Okay, so now let's just check and move this null again. See how it works. It is working. You can kind of see it rotating and aligning. It's just set to the wrong orientation. So we'll just undo that. So we'll add another null in. So let's just duplicate this target null. And we'll just call this head rotate. Just move this off a second. And then we'll just pop this into the up vector. Like this. Okay. And then on head, I mean, we can do this a couple of ways. One of the good things is, because it's already grouped into a null, you could change just the rotation of the head here. So we can rotate the head here by 90 degrees. Then we'll move the target. You can see how everything's kind of sticking exactly where it should be. Okay, so we know that's working now. And if we move the head rotate null, you can kind of see the heads rotating here around. And I guess it's down to your own preference really how you want these controls to work. And you could set the head rotate as a child of this one. So, you know, it'll always work the same way, but then if you rotate this round, you're going to get that rotation going on. It's completely up to you. But for how I needed to use this, it was fine just kind of having this on its own, because I didn't need to do any crazy rotations with the head, just a few simple movements. Okay, so we know this is working. What we want to do is just make sure that this body null always stays in the center here. So a good way to kind of ensuring that that always happens is to, you know, link it in Espresso, so we can force that position. So here we've got, if we open up and we pull out the, let's just pull out the global matrix, and we'll just link this into the global matrix of this one. So now we should not be able to kind of move this off its axis. There you go, it's completely locked in. Because what will happen is if you slightly just move this off the center point, then all these kind of get misaligned, and we start running into a lot of problems here. So we've solved this for now, and we'll just kind of move that there, and we'll kind of keep that locked off. Now we want to think about how we can get this moving. So we've got all these controls here, but we need some kind of like master control really to kind of hold all these controls. So we can use this Espresso one here, and we'll just call this move. Then what we can do is we can just move floor to the bottom, and then we'll just pull all these into this master move null here. We probably want to use another control, so let's just create a circle, set the orientation to XZ, move the size down a little bit, and that should work well. Again, we can go into basic, go into color, switch it on, and then let's just make this one like an orangey color. So we've got the controls there, and then we can parent everything into this control, main control. So when we move this, when we select this main control in the viewport, we've got everything else selected and should move accordingly. Okay, so what we'll do now is we want to kind of drive some dynamics. But the dynamics are not going to be fully dynamic. We want to kind of still allow for some kind of keyframes animation to happen, but we just want to drive the rotation of this ball, and then we've obviously got all the Espresso rig to keep this in the correct position while that happens. So if we go to body, we go to tags, go to simulation, and add a rigid body tag onto this. And let's just hit play and see. Oh, actually, let's just add a collider body, collider tag to this one as well. So simulation tags, collider body. Let's hit play. Actually, we'll hit play. And now, if we move this control, you can kind of see what's happening just on its own. Really, you've kind of got this rotation that's happening. And you know, the reason why it's not pulling it along is because the dynamics are obviously overpowering the keyframed animation. We can reset everything here. So one of the ways we can fix this is, let's just select the dynamics tag here. We go to force, and we want to just kind of move up, follow position, follow rotation. Maybe. So this is a bit of trial and error really. It depends on a lot of factors like your friction, your speed of your movement, and everything else. But it's just a case of getting a good balance. So now if we move this, we can see it's probably a bit too much. I'm just kind of move these on the fly. A good way to kind of test this control is, let's just add on a Vibrate Hug. Enable position, and we'll just move in, say, this axis and this axis. Let's just see what happens here. Yeah, it's probably a little quick, so put the frequency down. Maybe make that back to 100. This one as well. Now we've got this random movement, so we can start kind of playing with these values. We can maybe even move the floor up just a little bit, so there's a bit of intersection. We'll hopefully get some more friction. Yeah, there we go. We've got a little bit more friction going on and happening. But you can kind of see where we're going with this now already. Let's just switch off X-ray on this body. Okay, and now it's just a case of, you know, we'll just keep this playing and then just go into the dynamics tag and just start cranking these up. So here the follow position will kind of, it's almost, you know, at one end you've got your keyframed animation, one end you've got full dynamics. So by moving these values from 100% to 0 means that we're kind of going more towards the, kind of more biased towards keyframed animation as opposed to, you know, using pure dynamics. So you can see we probably want to use the dynamics a little bit more, so we'll drop this down in value and just see how that works. Again, we can drop them down. There we go. And we can also increase the friction as well. So if we go into friction here, change this to like 60 maybe. You can see we're getting more friction. We can do that on the floor as well. There we go. Let's go into forces. Pull down the follow rotation, follow position. We'll probably just pull the floor up a little bit so there's a bit more force. You can kind of see exactly what's going on. Let's just allow for a bit more movement here. Just like change this to 200. Slow this down. Kind of see what's going on with that. We can pop on, let's just duplicate this Vibrate tag here, and we'll just pop that onto the tag. You can see that's kind of then just giving us some random movement for this. And you can use these during your animation just to kind of add that degree of like secondary motion, really. Just kind of make it a bit more fluid. We'll just change this to a wider value, like 400, so we get a lot more movement going on. Okay, so let's go back here. And for this, because this is moving around quite a bit, we can make this a child of this. And you'll see we've not got that rotation going on anymore. It seems to be kind of very static, but if we go back into the Vibrate tag here, we can go to enable rotation, and you know it's going to rotate round on this axis, and we're going to get like a bit of rotation going on here. So I guess depending on the exact look you know and type of animation you're going for, then you can play around with these controls and just make it as easy as possible for you to kind of control, just depending on what type of movement you need to happen. So you can see as well, so we've got this random kind of like movement going on here. If I take the circle and we'll just go back to the beginning, let's just set a position keyframe. For this, we'll just move that across to there. You can see we can also drive keyframed animation as well. Again, if the movement's too quick, we can move this up a little bit, or we can again play with the friction values. So we can go into here, go to force, so collision, let's pull up friction again, let's make some higher values, do the same with the floor. There you go. So we want to be careful that we don't go too high with the friction values, just because we'll start getting some weird results. But you can smooth those out if you go into dynamic settings, and we go to here, visualize expert, change the steps per frame to something a little bit higher. You'll start to get a bit more of a smoother motion. But I quite liked how we had some kind of like jittery motion going on. It made it feel a lot more robotic, and it was more the kind of look and feel I was going for. And now you can see how you can create your own kind of rig to make this type of character. It's a lot of fun actually. And one of the cool things about this as well is because he is dynamic, you can pull in other objects into the scene as well. So let's just say we make this cube, and we'll just pop on a dynamics tag, so simulation, collider body, and you can see, you know, you've got this collider body tag here. We could have several of these going, and you know, you could have him moving up or down steps, and you've got that full kind of dynamics motion happening. Gives you just a lot of control. If you do get any issues with, you know, the movement being offset slightly, so if this was to move quite quickly, one of the things you can do is you can go into your kind of priorities and have a play around with these. That way, you know, you can kind of eliminate any kind of delay really with what's being reached. So you express with the dynamics and just swap the priority order to get things working a little bit smoother. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you in the next one.